Hi viewers, this is Deanna, the Executive Director with the West Plains Chamber of Commerce. We're here meeting with Century West and the City of Airway Heights on the proposed Highway 2 project. To begin, we're going to start with Tanya Murray from Global Credit Union, and she's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so let's go through some introductions. Heather, we'll start with you, and then we'll move on and start getting to the meat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm Heather Trautman. I'm the Planning Director for the Airway Heights community.
Thank you. I'm Brian Hicks, a project manager and the primary responsible engineer with Century West Engineering.
And I'm Matt Morkert. I'm a vice president with Century West. I'm the principal in charge for this project and trying to help promote more public involvement that we've been missing here on this project. So just wanted to start and say that I know we started some public outreach last spring and we didn't follow up very well, and we're trying to rectify that and make it better. Starting with this meeting, we were trying to get businesses out to talk to them, hear their concerns, give them some of the why of the project, what's going on, where we're at, next steps, and also kind of establish a plan for moving forward for communication so that there wasn't this communication gap that's going on right now. So right now we're in the design phase. We're nearing 90% design. There are still the ability to change things, but there are some constrictions that we have in the design process that we need to meet, some standards that we're meeting that are WSDOT requirements. So, but you know, we want to hear concerns. We want to hear, you know, what you're seeing and what your thoughts are on the proposed design, because it isn't finished. It's not finalized, and you know, your concerns, while we might not have answers today, we want to take them in, address them, see what we can do, and then get you answers on what we're doing with them. So we're still in design. Funding hasn't been secured for all of the construction. There is a project that's going to be starting in Garfield, at Garfield Roundabout, next year in construction. But beyond that, construction funding is still being procured for the rest of the project. So that is all still in process. But again, what we want, the purpose of this is to talk to businesses and to get input from them on this. Because it is going to impact businesses. We hope it's in a positive way. The final outcome is in a positive way, and whatever we can do to help make that happen is our goal. So, just starting out, I said we were going to talk about the why of the project. There's several whys of the project. One of the biggest goals is to create a downtown corridor or a downtown feel for Airway Heights where that's kind of missing right now. If you talk about the heart of Airway Heights right now, or it's probably more the park, or you know, there's not really a sense of identity for Airway Heights. There is a downtown business core, but I wouldn't say people driving through would necessarily see it as their core. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but one of the goals is to create that downtown feel. You know, when you drive through a small town or a smaller town, you know, there's usually a main street that has enhancements to make it feel like a pedestrian-friendly area that people want a destination that people want to go to. And part of this project is creating that. By creating that, you're also creating a sense of community for the community, a place people can gather, a destination, I guess. So that's one of the reasons. Another big reason is safety and pedestrian safety. and we'll talk a little bit more about crash statistics in a little bit, but this corridor is a dangerous corridor for pedestrians and for vehicles. I think there's been 751 vehicle accidents in the last 10 years within Airway Heights, just on Highway 2, and there have been 4 pedestrian fatalities along that same piece, which is a huge number for a community your size. So safety is another primary driver, and so some of the improvements are intended to improve safety. So Heather, what other reasons did I not cover well enough for the why?
Oh, I think you did a really great job, and I'll just kind of supplement a little bit of background to that. So the community has been engaged in a number of outreach activities over really almost 10 years around where does this community see itself going. It's been growing rapidly from 2010 to 2020. This community grew by 75%. And that community looked at itself and thought, how can I keep Airway Heights as a small town and yet be able to work with this growth moving forward? And a lot of the focus on those previous efforts of engagement and planning were around US2. It's a central element of the community. It is how people get to work. It's how they get to services. For some, it's crossing a road in order to get to our basic access, like the library or even to the grocery store. And it became the focus of several of these studies. And we kept hearing over and over again from the community a couple of things. They don't feel safe on US2. They don't feel safe crossing. They realize that there's a lot of traffic, that it's increasing, that it's a barrier for people to go from north to south, which is making it hard for people just to access services. For example, our elementary school is on the north side, and the school district is requiring all the students to be bused because it's not safe. We also were hearing that people felt like once you got off of US2, you could feel the real Airway Heights community, but when you were on US2, it felt like you were in a different town. And so there were calls for the identification and the creation of a downtown in a place where people would stop rather than pass through on their way to Fairchild Air Force Base or to farming communities further out to the west. And so these plans, these ideas of creating a downtown were monumented in a 2021 downtown plan. Before that, it was a 2018 corridor plan. And the community recognized that there is an importance of recognizing the different elements along the road. Not everywhere along US2 is exactly the same. If you're out toward the east, toward Walmart, that's maybe more of a destination business type of a facility, maybe auto-oriented, but they really felt like there was a downtown, and the community themselves selected the historic area that built along Highway 2 when this used to be the Galena Air Depot. And photographs on our downtown plan and the US2 corridor plan actually show that original downtown. The buildings that you see between Lundstrom and Lawson Street on the north side are some of them the original buildings that were built along this corridor. And there was a strong call to save those buildings and to save the businesses that are there and create support for our local community. We have a great diversity of businesses, and as a second theme, our community wanted to acknowledge and preserve those businesses. So we're looking at this as an opportunity to help rebuild the streetscape. It's one of the fundamental steps we understand when we look at Maintown USA or the Brookings Institute, a lot of national studies about how do you support your existing businesses in a downtown by rebuilding that street infrastructure. Build it and they will come, is the idea behind that. We also wanted to address those safety concerns that we heard about from the community. This 2-mile stretch with 750 accidents over a 10-year period and 4 fatalities is really remarkably high for a community of this size. And as a result of that, Washington State Department of Transportation actually began a study in 2021 with this community, with the city of Spokane, with Spokane County residents, looking at US2 for that safety as well as the congestion that's coming because of the growth, and realized that we couldn't build ourselves out of this bottle. We needed to look at different ways to start addressing that growth. Remember, we grew 75% in just 10 years, and we're continuing to grow. We're projected to grow at a clip of about 7% over the next 20 years. So we will be a population growing from about 12,000 to 17,000 people. And we need to think about not only that, but the people that are coming through this community, coming here to work, to shop, and to pass through this area as well to other destinations. So one of those studies, that 2021 for US2 did the West Plains Sub-Area Study, which Washington State Department of Transportation looked at and recognized that there were other strategies out there to help us as a community, and just as the other communities in Spokane County and the city of Spokane deal with congestion and safety moving forward. So again, a lot of different elements being put forth for us to consider about what to do with this feature. And of course, our own community said that this was an area where they wanted to see the most immediate and dramatic change in the community in order to help realize that vision moving forward as part of the Airway Heights, small town, a place you arrive, and how to improve access for our community members.
Great, thanks, Heather. One of the other places that shows up that all these accidents show up is in a WashDOT plan called Target Zero, and that's eliminating or removing accidents, trying to get down to zero accidents, zero fatalities. And I'll let Brian talk a little bit more about that.
So Target Zero is part of an ongoing effort by both the state of Washington and Federal Highway Administration to, reduce fatalities or minimize fatalities with a goal of zero. And kind of the key thing behind that is, the goal is 0 deaths and 0 serious injuries, because every life matters, or every life counts. And it's a multi-pronged approach that involves, safer road users, promoting safer behaviors on drivers, improving access to driver education, safer land use planning in the form of, promoting shorter travel distances between, residential areas and commercial areas where people work and play and live, safer speeds, recognizing that crash forces increase exponentially with speed, safer roads, which is really kind of one of the main focuses of this project in terms of, designing and building facilities that support safe travel for all modes, pedestrians, bicyclists, vehicles, safer vehicles, vehicles designed to keep users inside and outside of the vehicle safe, and then effective post crash care and response, which is your first responders. So it's a multi-pronged approach that involves several different part agencies, but the focus of this effort is primarily on the infrastructure related to meet those needs.
So one of the reasons that's important is because of all these crashes, it shows up as a target for this program. WashDOT sees all these crashes and the fatalities and goes, that's an area we want to focus on. And so that's one of the drivers too for the why.
Just as an aspect of this roadway has been placed on our countywide regional high injury network based on WashDOT study. So that indicates that this is a high level of importance because of the number of injuries and accidents along here, and the intervention, these strategies to work on the road to try and reduce that in order to address moving forward those safety aspects. And that plan goal is very aspirational by the state. It's actually by 2030 to reduce all roadway deaths in the state on the highway system.
Yeah. So just getting back to the why this project's important to the city and to, should be, it's important to WashDOT as well. So.
Yeah. And just on a statewide basis, you look back over the last 50 years or so of fatalities throughout the state, it bottomed out roughly about 2010, 2013, but since then, there's actually been about an 85% increase in road fatalities just over the last roughly 10, 12 years, which is,
Wonder what's become popular in that time frame. Let me check my phone and see what that is. Wonder if there's any link or connection there. So,
A lot of different aspects that play into that. But it's kind of a sobering statistic that it's
Yeah.
increased that much in such a short period of time after showing steady decline over the previous 30 years or so.
So in addition to safety, what are some of the standards and codes that you have to adhere to when you're looking at designing an area like this? So WashDOT has certain requirements when it comes to design. So I think that's where some information got lost, is everyone kind of saw the proposed project and thought, oh, this is a terrible idea. And then they weren't really understanding, okay, well, these are the confinements that we're operating in. So when it comes to drainage, things like that, what does that look like?
so somebody recently likened it to if you were remodeling something, in a business or in your house. You might have plans for what might work best for you, but then you have to go to the agency that's going to approve it and get approval on that. Well, the city's kind of in that same boat. They have this corridor, but WashDOT is the eventual approver, and because WashDOT is the one that is going to approve it, and because it's a state highway, there are a list of things that WashDOT is requiring for that project, and so I'll let Brian talk a little bit about some of those important aspects that have to go into the design to be approvable by WashDOT. So,
Yeah, one of the challenges is how this road's evolved over the years. There hasn't been a real plan to it. You look at it now as far as how it's been built, but none of that really meets any kind of current safety standards or design standards for the roadway. And so, as Matt mentioned, when we start opening that up, that can of worms, however you want to pronounce it, we have to start looking at all the different safety standards. Federal highways, because they control purse strings a lot and develop a lot of the design standards. So there's information about, travel lane widths, there's buffers for like clear zones for, distance from the travel lanes to say like trees or light standards or other fixed objects that are outside the roadway. Minimum widths for sidewalks, so that it's comfortable walking for people in two directions. Shared use path, those are generally minimum of 10 to 12 feet wide. And you have the various buffers between the path and travel lanes. One of the main challenges we found as we started talking with DOT at the beginning of the design was the lack of separation between like 14th and US 2 and that frontage road where everybody's parking right now on the north side of US 2 in front of like Billy's Diner and some of these other businesses along that frontage. Normally, under current standards, you're required to have quite a bit more separation between those two for the frontage to the highway to prevent traffic potentially backing up into the highway, causing safety issues or accidents on the highway. And so we had a lot of discussions with DOT about how we could make that work. And it really came down to we were forced to close the connection points between the frontage road on the north side and Lawson and Lundstrom, and then on the south side with 14th because it was too close to the roundabouts. Lawson and Lundstrom, we had to close off those entrances as well. So once those get constructed, you'll no longer be able to go directly from Lawson right onto 14th. But we'll still have access points, driveway approaches, I guess, that connect those to the frontage road on the north side and also 14th on the south side to the highway. It's just that they have to be set in quite a bit close, away from the intersections. On Highway 2, it's actually minimum, I believe it's about 250 feet from the center of the intersection to the nearest driveway.
So one of the key things, as Brian's talking about that, and changing access is going to be wayfinding. Giving people notice, hey, if you want to go to Billy's Diner or Salatai or any, there's got to be some notification that this is where you get in to get that. And over time, it'll become more natural, but as visitors come in, you're going to want to have that wayfinding to make sure that the businesses are recognized and you have that access piece included. So that's one of the things that we're trying to concentrate on as we get closer to the final design. So.
Yeah, I think this is a really good point, which is that the final approving authority over the plans, that literally is a submission process and an acceptance process by Washington State Department of Transportation, because it's a federal highway,
Right.
is that the current roadway, remember we talked a little bit about safety and the number of accidents. Why do you think those accidents might have occurred? They weren't all just speeders. They were people turning. And what we found through this process is that in the current standards that we're required to use, which is their standard book, guidebook on design, is that many of our driveways and where they were in proximity to intersections were too close. They were creating turning movement hazards that could result in further accidents. And so as we worked through our homework, right, that we got from the state, thinking about, okay, well, how can we work around this problem? We began to look at some ideas to put businesses first. How, if we're going to have to deal with moving access road points, driveways, how can we help promote the businesses in the core and make sure that they were being taken care of as part of this process? And so the city invested money in an additional parking study that wasn't covered by the grant, in order to analyze how we can maximize the space of the road. And it looks like a really wide road.
Yeah.
But once you start doing the math, think about you need to have a drive lane to allow for all of those businesses on the north and the south side in order to get to a customer to their front door. How do we preserve that? WashDOT was pushing back at the time because there's so many requirements. Brian had just mentioned we have to have facilities for walkers and bikers, and we have to think about stormwater facility along this highway, get that snow and make sure that the rainwater has somewhere to go. They were pushing for us to eliminate that on the north side, and the city had a really serious and long conversation over many months with WashDOT, convincing them of the importance of putting businesses first, that we had to maintain access for that area. And then it became a conversation about parking, whether or not parking was allowed, because this is all existing federal highway that we're working in. And so federal highway rules apply. And I think we were, at the end of the day, after many months, we were successful in convincing WashDOT that it was important to support local business by retaining as much as possible, not only access, so a drive lane in front of those businesses north and south, but as much parking as we could accommodate still within that area moving forward. So it's been a very interesting conversation with the permitting agency and with the businesses. And I think that coming back to part of the why of being lost was also the fundamental knowledge for many of the businesses that the right-of-way already comes up to the front of those businesses. As a matter of fact, that photograph I was mentioning literally shows, for between Lawson and Lundstrom on the north side, it's showing cars parked behind telephone poles, with the first edge of the pavement was immediately at the backside of the bumper of the car. Like, that's how the highway originally grew, was right there at the front of those businesses, and then it developed south, over the decades. So trying to make sure that we were getting all of these elements in. It wasn't just strictly about the standards, but we were thinking about the context in which this road was being designed as well.
And not to get into the weeds too much, but one of the things that we did through the design process is we actually shifted the road center line of the roadway to the south 25 or so feet through that section to give more room on the north side. That helped WashDOT see that there was a need there, and that parking was important. And with the inclusion of the roundabouts, that allowed that to happen. If they were still signalized intersections, you wouldn't be able to shift that down like that. So it's one key thing that we work through to try and support those businesses and give them more parking than, as much parking as we could accommodate while still meeting the design standards. So, just another way that the city's trying to help promote the business. It's not trying to push them out, trying to help preserve what's there and keep them moving. So.
And that really gets into, I think, Matt's last comment was, how do we look at this project, not just now, what more can we address with the plan, but how do we prepare as we move toward construction? How do we help support our community businesses before construction, during construction, and after construction as well? And those are areas that we're hoping to get some additional feedback. Other communities have done programs before. Some of the guidelines about how to redevelop a downtown talks about open for business plans, helping with not only after construction wayfinding, but during construction wayfinding, so people know that they can get to those businesses, that they're open during construction. And while we're still seeking permanent funding, this project, likely between Lawson and Lindstrom, may not be constructed for a year or two, but there are things for us to think about as we continue to look forward to this project and how we can help support this community moving forward.
So when it comes to reaching out to you, what is the best contact information for businesses to reach the city or Century West? And then also, is there a deadline on when these plans need to be submitted to WashDOT?
Well, our information is pretty simple. PlanningInfo at cawh.org will get to us here at the city for any comments and information.
My email address is mmorkert@centurywest.com.
Mine is just BHicks@centurywest.com.
And our office phone number is 509-838-3810. So either of those, any of those ways will get to us. So, but again, the goal here is to talk through this, hopefully give some of the why on why we're doing that, what the standards we're trying to meet and how we're trying to meet them, how we're also trying to help preserve the businesses and enhance them. The end goal of this project is to have a destination there that the businesses will benefit from. And so that's, as these materials are distributed, taking a look at them and, if there's concerns or comments about specific things, reaching out and talking through them. Again, we might not have an answer immediately, but we want the question to be asked so that we can talk through it with you, or at least have an answer about why. So why things may need to be the way they are, or if they can't be changed, what we can do to change it. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys, and thank you viewers and listeners. We'll include all the information and links to this project on our website at westplainschamber.org/connect. And then I'll also include contact information so any local businesses in the area can get connected, reach out, and hopefully we can find a good solution. Thank you, First Interstate Bank, for being our West Plains Connect podcast sponsor.